Hello and welcome to today's Partner Infopedia web conference. This is the U.S. Office 365 Partner Community Call for April of 2015. Kicking us off today is our Microsoft host, Michael Pansaroli, who is a Partner Technology Strategist for Office 365. Michael, you now have the floor.
Well, thanks, Deb. Hello and welcome, everybody. And if you've been joining our calls over the last several months, you know that we have a monthly focus where we have blog posts, we have a newsletter, and a community call. And this month's focus is on enterprise social. So our agenda for today, we're going to kick things off, and we're just going to give you some recent social updates and just things to know as a partner who have interest in this space. I'll take you through that. And next, today I'm here with Peter Walke. Peter is Office 365 Customer Success Manager, and he's also a former Enterprise Social Practice Director for one of our national partners. And he's going to provide us with best practices on how to help your customers be successful in their enterprise social journey. And Peter's also going to provide an overview of the Office 365 methodology, and I hope to have some questions which you can type in the Q&A window, and we will try to get those answered for you. So here are some ways to join our community that's focused on Office 365. You're going to find information on your Office 365 cloud practice and other useful information on the service and training and other resources. And you see the vanity URLs there. You can sign up for our newsletter, which comes out about the 15th of every month. I really encourage you to join the Yammer group and check out the U.S. Partner Community blog. And of course, our monthly calls, which is today. And on the blog, you can find the first post, the introductory one on Enterprise Social, and there'll be other articles there on Office 365 and also Azure. We have our Azure community as well. Okay, so getting things started on the updates. The latest innovations in enterprise social, we've really been weaving social seamlessly into the tools that you work every day, and just in a way that's in context and friction-free and really a way to get things done. And that's exactly what Jared Spataro said going back as far back as the SharePoint conference, and we've been delivering on that. And we've been working on that. And beyond Yammer integration with Office 365, we've also been building new experiences that really allow you to work like a network, such as Delve and the Office Graph. We're also introducing new capabilities to work more effectively within groups, both inside your organization and also outside. So I want to be able to take you and recap some of those investments so that you're up to date. And the first one you're seeing here is the document conversations. So they're rolling out now, and this has been taking a while, and they still haven't rolled out to all the tenants, but it is in the process of rolling out right now. And if you haven't seen these, this is what it looks like. So they enable people to just share ideas and experiences around the actual Office documents stored on OneDrive and SharePoint. Also works for images and videos, and just kind of embeds that directly into the context of editing or reviewing. So when you're opening up a file stored in SharePoint Online or OneDrive for Business in your browser, the file is open on the left-hand side of the screen, and then a contextual Yammer conversation is shown on the right, side by side. So it's easy to collapse. If you kind of look up in the upper right, there's just a little Yammer icon up there, and that just expands and contracts if you haven't seen that. And then it also appears in the Yammer feed in context as well. So it's just there right in that conversation. The next is Delve, and so this is one of the new experiences where you work like a network experiences that falls really into the enterprise social space. It's a new way to search and discover content across Office 365 based on personalized insights that it gets from the Office Graph, and those insights are surfaced within this Delve experience. So it surfaces relevant content based on your identity, the interactions with other people, because Office 365 really knows everything that you do, right? It knows the meetings that you're going to, it knows the content you're working with, and it knows who your colleagues are and what they're working on. So it really helps you stay better connected and informed to those topics that really matter most to you. So you saw like those contents kind of presented in cards, in a card view. So we have things you can click on like trending around me or shared with me or presented to me. So if you've been in a meeting, you can see the content in there, and they're personalized based on those insights with the machine learning that it's getting, and it's all dynamically people view. You can see insights about your colleagues and content that's relevant to them. And you can also see not only a hierarchical view of your colleagues, but the most relevant contacts generated automatically by the Office Graph based on interactions with people and content. And the goal here is really to make Office Graph available everywhere to get your work done. So for instance, it's going to be initially available as the web interface, but you're also seeing like the iPad app, which I've heard a lot of people say they really like. So we're going to bring that to every one of the devices. So that's the Delve experience, but perhaps more interesting really is the idea of this Office Graph. And the Office Graph gathers interaction, it gathers content and activity that's taking place across all users and all workloads of Office 365. So from Exchange Online, from SharePoint Online, it's also taking signals from Yammer. And the reason why I think this is interesting is that for partners, there are going to be some interesting hybrid scenarios that are coming where right now there's the Office Graph Query API, which is in preview. And there's going to be additional APIs that are going to be available later this year that are going to enable you to tap into that Office Graph where you can build your own experiences or have some interesting hybrid scenarios where you take signals from outside of Office 365 line of business systems, things that are on-prem, and feed those into the Office Graph. So I would be on the lookout for those announcements. There's no partner programs available today, but if I were paying attention, I would really be looking at the Ignite content to pay attention to those announcements there and learn about some more exciting scenarios that are going to be coming to this graph. So if you haven't played, if you're interested in this area and you're interested in tapping into the Office Graph, I would encourage you to check into the Office Graph Query API that's in preview. If you want to see Delve and you haven't yet, it's actually available in the MOD demos that's available to partners, so that the MOD demos, and you can, if you don't know where that is, I got blog posts about how to get to that. They actually have Delve scripts in there. So another thing that's new is this idea of external collaborators and messaging. So this hasn't rolled out yet. It's going to be soon, but you're going to be able to manage your projects all in one place. So if you work with vendors and partners and customers external to your Yammer network, you're going to be able to invite to a new internal conversations or existing conversations, and you can even send them private messages. So this is not an external network, right? This is adding somebody from outside your network into that conversation. So you're not really inviting them into the network. It's just kind of all they can see visibility-wise is just that conversation. And if you're interested in a preview of that, we're actually beta testing this on the Office 365 Yammer network. It's not really a great test bed, honestly, because it already is an external network, and but you can still try out that. If somebody isn't a member of that, you can invite them into that network. So there's been a lot of discussion around this. A lot of people were concerned that, hey, I'm concerned about security, and is this a good idea? And the most recent feedback I've seen is that you're going to have an ability as an administrator to turn that off until maybe there's enough education. But I have played with this, and I'm pretty impressed with what they did. There's a lot of work that's been done to really make sure that people who are in that conversation know there's somebody from the outside. So it's as easy as adding an email address in there. You can see a screenshot here. You actually get other notifications at the top letting people know that, hey, this is open to external participants. So there's lots of warnings about this. But maybe you just need to add somebody. You don't really want to add them to the network, but you want to be part of that conversation. That's what's happening here. And then the post turns to a little globe, as you see. So you just type in somebody's email address. It goes to Jay. And then you see that somebody has been added, or remote participants have been added, and then call your attention to the top of that card on the right. you see it turns to a little globe there, and that's letting you know there's somebody from the outside. And then that external participant can log in, and they don't actually need to come onto this network or sign in. They can actually just reply to their email, and it'll show up in this Yammer feed. So check out the Office 365 network, and then you can actually play around with this and see how this works. Okay, so there's been some mobile enhancements. The Yammer mobile experience is literally being updated on a weekly basis. A couple of the more recent notable enhancements included the handoff capability for Mac OS and iOS, being able to start a conversation, say on your Mac OS X, and then you swipe and continue the conversation on your iPad or your iPhone. And we also have Android Wear support. There's a couple of videos out there on YouTube that you can check out this functionality if you haven't seen it and you're interested. Just a couple of other updates to tell you about. The Office Online previews in Yammer. So you know the experience today. You upload that, and it's not really a file in Yammer. It's not really. You just have that viewer in Yammer, and what this is going to do, it's going to allow documents to be rendered within the Office Online directly in the context of the relevant Yammer conversation. So it's just going to be a preview for the first step, but of course we're working to bring the full collaboration experience directly into Yammer. Another small little update, but something to take note of, this idea of a Yammer, this is rolling out now too, is the all company groups prioritization. So, the all company groups is up on the top if you're familiar with that. They're actually kind of deprioritizing it, and they're going to move it to the bottom. So it's still there, it hasn't gone away. Just the reason is they're just prioritizing and encouraging discussion within the groups that users belong to rather than just kind of broadcast to the entire company. Also, IT improvements coming soon for networks with mapped users that meet the requirements to receive the Office 365 sign-in for Yammer. This is kind of like part 2 to that. And so the Azure AD Sync tool is going to receive an update that's going to give admins the ability to unify suspension rights and email changes. So let's say that a user is deleted in Office 365, they're going to automatically be suspended in Yammer. And when the admin makes a change to a user's email address in Office 365, they're going to automatically be modified in Yammer. So this was kind of a manual step for admins. It was kind of a disconnected experience. And these IT improvements are going to bring that a lot closer together. And finally, we have some discontinuations. If you haven't seen these, this is something to note for those of you who have customers. So the IE9 support is going to end at the end of this month. And we also are discontinuing support for the SharePoint 2013 app, Yammer app for SharePoint. This impacts both SharePoint Online and on premises. And that will no longer be supported, as in will stop working, on September 15th of 2015. And also that Yammer SharePoint 2010 web part is going to be discontinued as well. And so you have a lot more time on that. That's March 15th on 2016. You can see these in the Office 365 Yammer network for more information about this announcement and also how to replace that. And so basically the team wants to focus their efforts and they're going to consolidate on the Yammer embed. And so if you've used Yammer embed, you know that it's fairly straightforward. It's just an HTML script that you wind up embedding. It's very easy to use. It works well, but admittedly, there's some capabilities, particularly in that SharePoint 2010 Yammer web part, that doesn't really cover. And so just you have some advance notice on that. But the embed efforts is where they're going to be focusing. All right, well, hopefully that served as a good update for you, and I want to update this and turn this over to Peter Walke, who will be taking over the presenter now. And Peter, welcome, and maybe you want to just introduce yourself quick, and I'll turn it over to you.
For sure. Thanks, Michael. Yes, as Michael mentioned, my name is Peter Walke. I'm an Office 365 Customer Success Manager with Microsoft, and I'm actually very new to this role. Previously, I headed up a enterprise social practice at a partner. So if anything, I'm very much in your shoes. I can tell you guys where the opportunities are for services here, and I'm very much open to questions. So feel free to please use the Q&A function at the bottom. I love engaging with with my peers out there. So what Michael just showed you were very product-specific things that you can bring back to your customers and say what the roadmap is and where Yammer is going. Where I think that partners can be successful is, from a services point of view, is walking their customers through the social journey, if you will. So there's, as you saw right there, there's not a lot of development effort that can be done there. Maybe on the SharePoint 2010 app part, you can do some queries against, for example, we're missing the search functionality, so you can query against the REST API on Yammer and create an app part, let's say, for SharePoint 2013. But again, that's not going to be a lot of services. That's one small thing. I think where, from a services point of view, we can be is through these adoption engagements. If you can just hold on 1 second, Michael, I have to switch out my microphone right here. Would you kind of explain a little bit what you've seen on the adoption while I do this?
Michael, there, do we have you?
Hi. Yeah, it's been kind of interesting, right? Because I see things changing. There's still a lot of opportunities to be able to make money, and what I've seen is that, you know, part of the social engagement, right? Really, and this was, I believe this was a Gartner study where, you know, 80% is really about social change, right? Only 20% is about the technology piece. And it's interesting because so many of our partners, they totally know how to do that technology piece. They know how to get people onto Yammer. They might even know how to build a Yammer app or a SharePoint web part. But they usually have, you know, kind of what I call more on the consulting side. They usually have that talent in-house, or it's pretty easy to kind of build that from some of their existing resources, but they're not taking advantage of a lot of these opportunities to do that and really build out full managed service that really kind of go across the entire life cycle of an Office 365 engagement.
Great. Thanks for filling in there, Michael. You said that very well. Again, Bluetooth headphones don't always have batteries that last forever, so I appreciate you jumping in there. So with that being said, I do want to, first off, one of the things to think about when you're asking your customers is, first off, how mature are your customers? This is a question you should be asking your customers. And you might see this in older school of manufacturing companies, that they're maybe more towards the left hand of the spectrum here, and in maybe more modern companies, more towards the right side. What I find is that typically they fall somewhere in the middle here. So let's talk about what the maturity really means at your customer. And I think that will tailor the way that you engage with your customers from an adoption point of view. So are they a traditional company that handles things primarily through phone, email, and face-to-face collaboration? They're very siloed. They don't interact outside of maybe their departments, let's say. I think that you don't see those very often because I think that those are dinosaurs that have kind of died off already. We're starting to see early on is experimentation in two. I think that we want to be engaged probably are in 2 and 3, moving people to 4s and 5s. So in 2, we're really having some departmental solutions, some really small engagements, and it's prompted about by specific need. Sometimes what you might even see is a customer who creates a LinkedIn group, or they start having collaboration around those things because their company is providing them to them. So again, it's a point solution. It's really around a department, and they're not really engaging and collaborating across the entire company. What we start seeing is that the companies are really starting to move into proliferation. That's when they actually start engaging partners, because they say, hey, there's a lot on our plate here. There was a rogue Yammer network out there that really got a lot of traction around this one department. Now we need to make sure that we leverage the momentum that we had around that across our entire corporation. And between 2 and 3, I think that's where we typically find ourselves engaged. So we want to start moving them into widespread use, help them develop their usage strategies. So I can talk through that in just a bit. We can talk through the governance structure that goes into that, helping coach them on some of these nuanced tasks that need to be done. And I argue that this is what we had to do on SharePoint also, and maybe it wasn't always done the right way. But I think that this is our opportunity to make sure that enterprise social is rolled out in the correct way. Again, it doesn't have a lot. It doesn't have a lot of interoperability. So this might just be Yammer itself, not really embedded into SharePoint through Yammer Embed, let's say. And there's maybe some basic enterprise standards and governance. Maybe they take their existing social media policy, remove Facebook and Twitter, and just rename it as their Yammer enterprise social policy. What we really want to move them towards is more standardization, even cultural collaboration. That's the holy grail, really. But standardization, we really have a strategy in place. You guys can help with that. They standardize on one single platform, and really opening or breaking down barriers so that they can access this technology anywhere and any place. So again, if the company is more old school and they have strict VPN requirements, let's say the only BYOD strategies they're good, maybe you can coach them through the opportunities and the use cases that really are enabled by enabling mobile across your organization. And then really, if you can have a long-term engagement with a customer, we've had a couple great examples of this. One of them was actually just recognized as one of the best intranets out there by Aon. There was just a press release on that. I was engaged with that company. It was an integrated strategy, so it wasn't just Yammer. Yammer was the foot in the door for us, but it really was we had what was called Aon Avenue. You can search that on the internet. We had a really good rollout there, where Yammer, we initially rolled out that as a knowledge sharing platform, and then we really integrated that into an intranet that had video, that had integrated profiles. It was really one place for people to get work done. And even if you walk around the halls at Aon, you'll hear that they'll talk about, hey, I saw this thing on Aon Avenue. It really embedded into their culture. So that's really where you want to be moving there. And again, this wasn't just a tech solution. The SharePoint bit was not the biggest play there. It really was the adoption and being a strategic partner with your customers. So that's really the first question you need to be asking your customers, and even feel free to use these slides. So how do you do that? So now let's get a little tactical on the strategy side of things. So I'm going to walk you through a 4-step process that we typically use. This is based upon existing change management strategies. This actually could be used for really anything on the Office 365 suite. As I'm going through this, start thinking to yourself, what are the other workloads that are within Office 365? There's OneDrive, there's SharePoint Online, there's Lync Online, there's Exchange Online. There's so many other workloads that are out there. But think about the experiences the things I'm walking through here, and start pivoting on that and thinking, oh yeah, that probably would work really well for this Lync Online rollout that I'm doing. So let me start off first with defining our vision and business scenarios. So how do we do this? I think that there's a change that needs to happen in our customers, and this is one of the biggest difficulties that I've seen, especially if we're engaging directly with IT. There's a new role of your business leader. They are no longer the gatekeepers to technology, they're more the greenskeepers to technology. IT needs to be empowered to solve business solutions instead of just being the people that are provisioning your machines or standing up SharePoint sites. They're really much more deeply integrated into the business processes and need to understand that also. So that's a challenge that we're starting to see even within our customers. So they need to identify the business needs, translating this technology, not just this seems like a really cool technology and I'm going to geek out on it, but what's the business value behind it? And then move backwards from the business problems to the technology solution. So instead of, a lot of times what I've seen is that, oh, we bought SharePoint, now what do we do with it? It even reminds me when I set up my first GeoCity site. Okay, I've set up my GeoCity site. What do I want to do with it? This is when I was a kid. That even resonated back then. Okay, now what am I going to do with this? What was the whole point of it? It was kind of a fun geek exercise to create that website, but now what do I do with it going forward? Maybe I'm dating myself, I'm sorry. So now that we've defined what our vision is, let's prioritize the solutions and create an adoption plan that goes along with it. So really need to focus on the user experience. You're going to hear me harp on this, that you need to get into the shoes of your users. One example that I might use here is that this is maybe a OneDrive example. So I was talking with a customer and they were saying, they were doing this big campaign saying, "Oh, saved by OneDrive." Saved of a bus to a computer and said, "Oh, your files are saved because they're from OneDrive." And actually, that resonates really well with us from a technology point of view. Yeah, your files are out in the cloud; they're safe. But honestly, like, think about it as if you were to try to explain this to your mom or something like that. That might resonate with her. But what about? Let's talk about just the people you're working with in your day-to-day lifetime, your admins that you're working with. Imagine if there's one source of truth around that document, that it was on every device that you were working on. That is where the business value really is. It's not about the fear attack. It's going from motivating people from fear to more empowerment. That, hey, look, your files are everywhere. It's on your mobile device. We have OneDrive apps for iOS. We have apps for Android. It is everywhere you want to be. You can look it up. You can post pictures. Everything. It's everywhere. So again, talking about the user experience, not just, oh, this is a really cool IT solution. Make sure the solution belongs to the users. This is not IT owning it. And if anything, this lessens the burden on IT. And asking people around areas for improvements again. This is not just your project. This is not your kitty. This is really in the hands of the users. If anything, it lessens the need for IT's involvement here, and we can make that play from it. You can make that argument very, very strongly that the users are now empowered. And if anything, a lot of times in these types of engagements, IT doesn't always have the budget to do these things, but if you can get in front of the users and get talking to marketing, corp comms, HR, they sometimes do have the budgets for these initiatives, especially around enterprise social. So again, how do we do this? So I like to take a crawl, walk, run approach to this. Start small. For example, if you're doing a SharePoint Online rollout, I'd encourage you guys to not try to take this legacy SharePoint 2010 intranet, try to upgrade it to 2013, then SharePoint Online. That's a great engagement, but I wouldn't start with that. What I would start with is, hey, just how about we put our new team sites in SharePoint Online? How about we create a site collection out there and start moving our new team sites out there? Again, starting small and having these small wins, and you're going to learn a lot by doing that. Again, finding the low-hanging fruit that's out there. Creating a new team site in SharePoint Online is pretty easy. Make sure that it has a good business value for it. Make sure that there are teams that are willing to move this way, and get the right team for your pilot. We have this concept of red dots, yellow dots, and green dots. You might have heard the Yammer people talk about this. Green dots are the people that really get it. People that are on board. They're the people that are itching to be engaged socially in Yammer. So these are the people that already they might have been on the freemium network already, and they're going to be your champions. Yellow dots are maybe people a little bit more on the fence around trying to figure out what you're doing. They kind of see what you're doing. They like what you're doing, but they don't necessarily. They're not really fully bought in yet. I think that the example I might want to use is like, when I talked to my brother about Twitter, he was asking me like, "Hey Peter, how do you get all these cool articles?" And I said, "Oh, I use Twitter a lot." He's like, "But I don't see you tweet a lot." And I was like saying, I actually use Twitter more of as a consumption device a lot of the times. And he's like, "Oh, this is really neat." So he's now actually finding articles for me and mentioning me on those articles. And now he actually sees the value in it. So it wasn't that hard I'd argue he's a yellow green dot. Red dots are people that are really resistant to change. And I might explain this maybe like trying to explain to your mom how Twitter works. And, what is a tweet? And she'll sign her tweets with, love you mom at the end of it. Getting her to even be a yellow dot would be probably pretty challenging, right? So what I'm trying to say here is that start with the green dots first. And really engage them one-on-one, and find those people at your customers. Try to create documentation around yellow to help bring yellow dots into green dots. And I think that over time, work on the red dots. They might come along as they see the rest of the organization changing. So moving on, let's commit resources and actually execute on this adoption plan. So there's a lot of things that we do here. Again, you're not going to see a lot of development. I'm not going to say there is this giant amount of dev work that needs to be done here. A lot of this work here, especially if you're doing an enterprise social deployment play, it is around communications, engagement events, and training. A lot of working with the business. So communications, there is a lot of work that needs to be done and thought about as you launch your Yammer network. You need to introduce it on your intranet. Explain what Yammer is to people. I always like having the concept of a symbolic launch. So when you are really ready and you have all your communications, I like having some sort of crescendo where you really have an event where you have a couple things happen. So I can give an example of a large manufacturing company that we worked with, where we just launched in August, and we had our symbolic launch in August. And what we did was we had cookies with the Yammer logo put on them. We had a lot of documentation. We advertised it beforehand. We had digital signage throughout the company. It was a global event. Our engagement spiked pretty significantly. We also made it, and we essentially had a technology open house. And in this open house, we had also other technologies that were out there. So SharePoint search, there was also a video portal that they were launching. So we brought everybody to the party that really wanted to be part of it. And then lastly, training. There is going to be some ongoing training that needs to happen with your customers, showing them how to work in a more open way. So that can be either through documentation, they're engaging a third party, or even hosting and delivering this training material yourself. There's definitely an opportunity there to do that. Moving on. So let's make sure that we're driving excitement and awareness. Again, we need to put it in the shoes of what's in it for them. Using my OneDrive example, we really need to make sure that it's not just what IT wants, it's what the users want. Again, through Yammer, we might say, oh, this is going to be an easy replacement for discussion boards, and I won't have to spend all this money on IT for my SharePoint servers. That's what's in it for IT. If you think about it, what's in it for users with Yammer, it's about being more engaged within companies. It's about breaking down silos across both horizontally and vertically. So when I say horizontally, making sure that, say, engineering is talking with marketing. Vertically, by you actually engaging with the C-level executives at your company. So again, that's more what's in it for them as the users. We want to communicate our goals and milestones. We want to make sure that we have some semblance of what we want to do from network maturity, both from a qualitative and quantitative point of view. So from a qualitative point of view, we want to say, like, look at these great conversations we're having in the network. I typically recommend our customers tag these with YamWin or Social Win or some sort of consistent hashtag that we can go back on a quarterly basis and report them back to C-level management. Also using some of the out-of-the-box analytics to get the more quantitative details around the number of users, number of groups, most active groups. And then make sure this is again where you guys can be helping your customers, tailoring that language. There's some great documentation, great ways to start out on Success Center, success.office.com, to go grab some of these materials, but make sure you're tailoring those to your audience and your customer, and working with your customer to do that. So when we're developing the usage strategy for our customers, we want to take a look at the existing policies that are out there, the existing employee handbook, existing social policies, and make sure that we're tailoring that to work with Yammer. So lastly, we want to measure our success and iterate on these. So what I'm saying almost sounds very waterfall-y, do this, do this, do this, do this, but it's really a lot more dynamic and agile than it really is. So I might even realize that early on that our business cases aren't necessarily what we had necessarily hoped for. And one example I have here is that, so, we worked with a manufacturing company where they were, we were going to be working with engineering and marketing to create a more open network and way to collaborate with each other. But what we realized was that there was somebody, so they have facilities, they have plant managers, and they rolled out Yammer to the entire company. And there was we found a use case that we never even thought about because we didn't engage these people in the first place. And so this is the second step. And so what happened was this plant manager was regularly taking his phone out. He doesn't have a computer. He's not what we call an information worker. He's a plant manager. He fixes things in the building. And so anytime something was wrong, like there was a frayed wire chewed through by rats or something, or there was a leaky pipe that's consistent across all the different plants, he would take a picture and he'd use hashtag there's your problem and explain how he fixed it. So again, that's a use case that we never even thought of in the first place. So be very agile and think about and look for engagement opportunities with your customers as you're going through this. This is a very fluid methodology here. So with that being said, we do want to have measure progress against a benchmark. From an engagement point of view, we do need to still justify our existence from a ROI point of view. I talked about the qualitative and quantitative statistics. You want to have some goals around those. We want to improve the solution on based on Yammer feedbacks, on user feedback. So just like that, once that plant worker use case brought in, we made sure that we brought that into our to our work stream and add scenarios. Keep them coming. Make sure you're doing a crawl, walk, run approach to this. Don't try to focus on every single single group. Take the ones that are change ready and come along with you. So if I can wrap up, if there's anything that you can take away from this presentation, there's 4 things that are really important to making sure you have a successful journey. First off, clarity of vision. You want to align your vision to real business scenarios. You really have to have a true business play for this, not an IT play. Sponsorship. We need executives engaged here. And a lot of times one of the things that we do, what I did in my previous company was we'd hold executive training sessions where we'd walk them through how to engage in the social world. They were sometimes yellow dots, not necessarily green dots, but we really needed them along with us. So we held their hand and showed them how to work in a social way. Integration. This is, again, where you guys can definitely jump in here and integrate Yammer into other tools. You can leverage the REST API that's out there. Bring this into your existing SharePoint portals, learning management systems, ERPs. The Yammer embed code is stupid simple to drop in anywhere. And community management, so this can either be your opportunity to really drive a new business area. That's what I did in my previous company, where I came from a SharePoint architect background, but I really led the community management aspect of this. And you can staff people either on a retainer basis or on a long-term engagement from a community management point of view, and making sure that we're coaching our customers through this because they're not really ready for it. So again, these are the 4 takeaways that I hope that you can get from here. And with that, that ends my slides. So Michael, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, Peter, thanks so much. I appreciate the best practices and particularly the partner voice that you have. So I'm sure everybody found that to be very relevant. There's just a couple of questions in the QA window. Did you want to take a stab at those for the callers?
I'm just peeking through those right now. So I'll definitely answer these in text also, just for the purpose of the recording. But are there any ROI cases that are available? Yes, there's some great information on the Success Center out there. We've got some great videos out there. We've got some case studies that are out there showing the ROI that's there. Assessments. There are what I like to do is, just like we were talking about the maturity, I sometimes put that into a matrix and interview I interview other people at the customer early on to try to evaluate that. So definitely take the slides of maturity, develop your own maturity scale. Again, that was IP that I developed in my previous company. I probably can't share that here, but there's definitely an opportunity for engagement with your customers there. Then consolidating, migrating Yammer content. There isn't a good way to migrate content, but with that being said, I will say that the half-life of a Yammer message is very short. So people think they need it, but they really don't. Mm-hmm. And then consolidating groups, that's a community management aspect. There is a tip that I heard from Melanie Hovertz, she's the community manager from Cargo. She's a really sharp woman. And I'm going to steal this from her every day I can. She watches the word created in the Yammer network. So just like you can watch the naughty word list, you can actually watch good words. So she watches the word created, which doesn't happen very often. And when that happens, you're on her hit list. You are on her radar very immediately. She brings you into a Yammer admins group, and she also inside of there's documentation saying, "Hey, I saw you just created a group. Did you search for a group?" And sometimes people will self-select and be like, "Oh shoot, yeah, there's already a group that's similar to this. And then afterwards, she'll follow up and say, hey, maybe this group is not relevant. But again, it's going to be a matter of pruning that garden. You don't want this to turn into, there's definitely real community management that has to happen there.
Awesome. Thanks, Peter. Hey, before you answer any more questions, I'm going to step in here really quickly. Folks, I'd like to call your attention to a link that I've posted into the conversation window. This is a link to a short survey. We appreciate you taking a moment to fill it out prior to logging out. These surveys are very valuable to us. They give us important information from you on what you want to see, what you liked, and what you didn't like. Our voting scale is on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the best. And be sure to click on the Submit button at the bottom to ensure that your feedback has been received. And with that, I will turn it back, Peter and Michael, if there's any other questions that you guys want to go through.
Yeah, it looks like we have a couple more questions that came in. Thanks, Deb.
Yep. So learning. I've seen Yammer integrated into learning management systems through Yammer Embed, whereby people give feedback on existing modules that are out there. So I've seen that work. Yammer Embed's pretty easy to do. How do I articulate and price this engagement? It's a great question, and that's been a moving target. So each customer is different scope, but generally we take each 4 steps that I laid out there and have a services fee around each one. And that is how we do that. And then we help them through like X amount of use cases. We're going to run you through this approach. And then generally they like what we did, and we want to do the 4th step, which is iterating on these. And that's how we have continual engagements with these customers.
All right, any other questions out there? While we're waiting for those last few questions to come in, Michael, Peter, do you have any final words for our audience before we wrap up today?
Just that if anybody has anything that comes up, or you didn't have an opportunity to ask your question, or you're listening to this recording, as always, feel free to post your questions onto the Office 365 partner Yammer group, part of that US network. And so just go ahead and feel free to ask your questions there, and we'll get you an answer. Excellent.
Peter, how about you?
Yeah, this is great. I appreciate you putting this together, and feel free to reach out to me on the Office 365 network, aka IT Pro Network. I'm out there. I love engaging with you guys.
Awesome, thanks. So folks, our presenters are going to stick around to answer questions, so please feel free to continue submitting those if you do. However, that does conclude the recorded portion of today's event. Again, partners, you're going to be able to get to the replay on worldwide events within 24 hours. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenters Michael and Peter, and thank you audience for logging in and joining us today.